future of battlefield scouting is here. Intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance have shaped warfare for centuries, leading to iconic machines like the Bell OH-fifty-eight Kiowa, and more recently, the cutting-edge Bell-three-sixty Invictus. The Kiowa earned its stripes in decades of combat, but its time is over. Now the Invictus is stepping in, a sleek, stealthy prototype designed for speed, precision, and deadly firepower. But just how big of an upgrade is it? And how are rival nations reacting to this game-changing rotorcraft? Join us as we discuss the history-making potential of the Bell-three-sixty Invictus. The international arms race has been a subject for debate since time immemorial, with each of the superpowers snatching at each other's heels in a bid to control the world. However, to gain control, power is of utmost importance, both military and economic. Although super nations like China, the United States, the United Kingdom, and the Kremlin have somewhat found ways to go neck and neck economically, military might seems to be at the crux of it all, with nations particularly afraid of an invasion or going to war with countries that have superior military technology. Enter the United States. Warfare technology has evolved exponentially over the years, from discovering fire to discovering iron and creating swords, before guns and drones even became a thing. However, as much as ground combat has been a big part of conventional warfare, the tide soon turned heavily towards aerial combat. There is a popular belief that whoever controls the air can break the opponent's spirit, therefore winning half the battle. Hence, top nations like China, Russia, and the United States continue their quest to take over the skies, with fighter jets, bombers, and helicopters at the forefront of their aerial creation. The United States Army has been known over the years as arguably the world's strongest military out there, and not just by the sheer volumes of personal wars or affiliate wars that they have fought and won, but also by their display of some of the world's leading technology in ground combat and aerial warfare, especially their surveillance choppers. The Vietnam War was an eye-opener on the capabilities of the United States' depth in aerial technology, especially with the addition of the Bell OH-fifty-eight Kiowa Scout helicopter. However, as the years rolled on, the United States Army wanted something different. An upgrade so lethal that it could serve multiple purposes in a war, ranging from stealth missions, including intelligence gathering, surveillance, and reconnaissance, to being lethal as a weapon capable of serious attacking threats. Hence the introduction of the Bell-three-sixty Invictus. The Bell-three-sixty Invictus was a proposed chopper design that was created to satisfy the United States military's recent urge for a better, faster, and lighter helicopter capable of performing intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance, otherwise called ISR functions, while carrying enough ordnance to deal damage in aerial-to-aerial or air-to-ground combat. To that effect, the United States Army created the Future Attack Reconnaissance Aircraft, or FARA program in 2018, with an aim to develop a successor to the Vietnam War hero, the Bell OH-fifty-eight Kiowa Scout helicopter. But what made the O-58 so special until the Army requested an upgrade? Like nearly every military technology, war and control have always been at its base, spurring on the creation of an instrument of war that ensures dominance. In the 1960s, the United States military decided on a need for a light observer helicopter, otherwise called LOH, ergo, they approached the United States Navy, which in turn met with 25 helicopter manufacturers to place a request on behalf of the United States Army, which has asked for proposals from all 25 companies, striking up a competition to make an impression. One of the manufacturers was Bell Helicopter, which made the first model of the OH-58, named the D-250. At first, the D-250 model was rejected. The Hughes and Fairchild Hiller prototype, the Hughes OH-6 Cayuse, was selected in May 1965. When everyone thought it was the end for Bell Helicopter, they went into problem-solving mode, fixing the cargo space on the helicopter by redesigning the fuselage to be sleeker and more pleasing to the eyes, while also adding roughly 16 cubic feet of cargo space in the process. This upgrade helped to improve the image for getting into the commercial market. The new design was designated as the Model 2 06A, and Bell President Edwin J. Ducaille named it the Jet Ranger, denoting an evolution from the popular Model 47J Ranger. However, in 1967, the Army reopened the light observation helicopter competition and sought out the companies one more time, but with a completely different specification from what was given the last time. As expected, Hughes Tool Company tried their hand again at the possibility of getting the Army contract for the second time. This time, they couldn't meet the contractual demands, and Bell Helicopter was finally chosen. They submitted their upgraded Model 2-06A and subsequently won the bid. The Army recognized the stealth capacity of the Model 2-06A and just could not pass up on it. Consequently, the United States Army designated the Model 2-06A as the OH-58A Kiowa in honor of the Native American tribe. The OH-58 was intended for just observation and stealth missions at first. However, the Army Helicopter Improvement Program, otherwise called the AHIP, demanded a more robust version of the OH-58A, and Bell Helicopter delivered once again, sealing the trust of the Army in them. The more robust version of the Bell Helicopter was designed to function in hunter-killer missions. Hunter-killer missions involve a pair of aircraft where one functions as a scout owing to its stealth capabilities to provide intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance features, ergo, taking the role of hunter, while the killer is the attack helicopter that engages and attacks the targets identified by its hunter pair. Bell Helicopter created the OH-58D to play this role when Congress agreed to the release of $138 million. The OH-58 Kiowa models were designed as a family of single-engine, single-rotor military helicopters, principally tasked with the responsibility of observation, utility, and direct fire support. However, as the years rolled by, the Army instigated upgraded versions that could function as hunters, identifying targets for other platforms such as the Bell AH-1 Cobra attack helicopter and ground artillery, field guns, howitzers, mortars, self-propelled artillery, and multiple rocket launchers. However, it was a little too counterintuitive to have a scout helicopter that relied heavily on the human factor to conduct observation. Hence the need for later designs, which were retrofitted with cutting-edge sensor technology that performed the intelligence gathering, surveillance, and reconnaissance roles to perfection. While the early Kiowas had a twin-bladed rotor style, the upgrade to the rotor started with the creation of the more robust version of the OH-58 Kiowas. While the earlier ones had a flexible rotor, the OH-58 upgrade was made entirely of composite materials, meaning that they mixed up materials like fiberglass or carbon fiber to create advanced materials, which helps the helicopter maintain balance while it moves. Sacrificing the heaviness of the early Kiowas was the crux of the light observation helicopter program, hence their rationale for choosing rigidity and strength from a four-bladed motor built out of composite materials over the two-rotor blade that relied on mechanical hinges and flexibility. In August 1969, America officially unveiled the early Kiowa in South Vietnam for the first time, accompanied by a new equipment training team, NET, comprising personnel from both the United States Army and Bell Helicopters. Although Bell had finally won the new light observation helicopter contract with the United States Army, they did not immediately replace the OH-6 Cayuse during operations, as they were both used together until the end of the Vietnam War. While both helicopters were in use during the Vietnam War, the OH-58A Kiowa helicopter had its first stint in real-life battle. On March 27, 1970, a Kiowa was shot down during a scout mission in South Vietnam, claiming the lives of the pilot, Warrant Officer Ralph Quick Jr., and an artillery spotter, Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Bonoski. Getting shot out of the sky during a battle damage assessment mission sent a direct message to the Army that they needed much better stealth features and sensors that could help with intelligence gathering, surveillance, and reconnaissance, otherwise called the ISR missions. Although the helicopter provided some success, especially during Operation Desert Shield, where it was utilized as a hunter to spot and target lasers. During Operation Desert Storm, the United States Army deployed 130 OH-58D helicopters that worked alongside the other Army attack helicopters, 145 AH-1 Cobras, and 277 AH-64 Apaches, and participated in a wide variety of critical combat ground forces missions. During Operation Desert Shield and Operation Desert Storm, The Kiowas collectively flew nearly 9,000 hours with a 92% fully mission-capable rate. The upgraded Kiowa Warrior had the lowest ratio of maintenance hours to flight hours of any combat helicopter in the war, meaning that it did not have to be serviced as much as other aircraft. Fast forward to July 2020, and the United States Army decided to retire the OH-58C from service. With warfare advancing and technological improvements not lagging behind, the United States Army is also in the global arms race and looking to improve on what they have, especially their helicopters. But how much of an upgrade is the Bell-360 Invictus over the earlier Bell helicopter versions? Scott Donnelly, the chief executive officer of Textron, said in 2019 that the Invictus will be based on previous technology used in the Bell-525 Relentless, an American super medium lift helicopter under development by Bell Textron. For helicopters, rotors have always been a massive talking point, as they sometimes point to the time of their design and the technology available at the time. However, the Invictus has been promised to be nothing short of a monster in the air. Although it follows the same architectural template as the Bell-525 Relentless, there are some differences. For example, the Invictus will only have seats for two, a gunner, and a pilot. Also, it will use a single engine and a 4-blade rotor, whereas the 525 uses twin engines and a 5-blade rotor and has a 19-passenger capacity. Bell has since announced it is developing the Invictus with Collins Aerospace, and the Sierra Nevada Corporation is developing the mission systems for the aircraft. The first design was unveiled on October 1, 2019, which reflected a tandem cockpit, meaning that the pilot and the gunner would not be sitting beside each other like it is done in commercial helicopters, but in front and back seats. The design took everyone by surprise because the older version, like the Apache, used to have the gunner in the front and the pilot in the rear. However, the Bell-360 Invictus is a different case, owing to its advanced sensors, automation, and even situational awareness. Hence, the pilot does not have to be at the rear. The aircraft has sighting optics and a laser designator above a 20mm cannon gun turret at the chin position below the cockpit, mid-mounted stub wings under the rotor hub, and 12-meter rotor blades. The aircraft is particularly weirdly built, owing to the specifications designs from the United States military. For some context, they asked that the helicopter be able to fit in between buildings on future battlefields. As for speed, the Future Attack Reconnaissance Aircraft expects that the aircraft is able to cruise in excess of 210 miles per hour and is supported by a single General Electric T901 turboshaft engine with supplemental power from a Pratt & Whitney P207D1 turboshaft. The introduction of the Invictus is a game-changer for helicopters, especially since it replaces conventional controls like cables, pulleys, and rods with an electronic system, often referred to as the fly-by-wire system. The Invictus is the perfect lightweight helicopter since it cuts off every need for a mechanical linkage between the pilot and the control surfaces. For some context, the fly-by-wire system replaces the conventional manual flight controls of an aircraft with an electronic interface. The movements of flight controls are converted to electronic signals, and flight control computers determine how to move the actuators at each control surface to provide the ordered response. Bell Helicopter designed the Invictus as a completely fly-by-wire controlled aircraft. While the world waits in unbridled anticipation, Bell Helicopter unveiled its first full-scale mock-up of the 360 Invictus at the Association of the United States Army annual show, beginning in 2019. Although it received great attention, it was still based off the Bell 525. But what makes the Bell 525 so special? The Bell 525 was designed as a super medium lift helicopter with the ability to carry up to 19 passengers. However, its major difference from the Invictus is its global market, which was made specifically for commercial use, including the corporate, oil and gas, medical services, and search and rescue markets. But just how much does it serve as a building template for the Bell-360 Invictus? The Bell 525 was designed by Bell Helicopter to fly at a speed of around 185 miles per hour, which anyone could argue was fast enough for a conventional civilian-friendly helicopter. However, for the military, they wanted more speed, something fourth generation that breaks the speed threshold to almost 207 miles per hour. Since the Bell 525 was already on the cusp of that speed limit, it was the perfect foundation to build on for the Bell-360 Invictus. The Bell 525 was designed with a streamlined fuselage to reduce drag, while the aircraft flies in a rotor design that helps to optimize both lift and speed, two of a helicopter's most important features. Also, the fly-by-wire was a concept that was already built into the systems of the Bell 525, prompting the structural and mechanical design choices for the Bell-360 Invictus. However, the fly-by-wire was much more than just a reduced mechanical linkage from the pilot to the control surface. It is an important part of a helicopter's maneuverability owing to a trade-off in weight for agility. Although the Bell 525 is no military-grade helicopter, it was designed to trot the most difficult terrains, and so streamlined that it could take tight turns in urban and forested terrain. Also, the Bell 525 was for long-range commercial flights, including transporting executives to offshore oil rigs or meetings in the most remote areas. Hence, it was designed with some serious fuel capacity, meaning that it rarely had to stop over for fueling, even when it traveled long distances. More importantly, this translated directly to their requirements to create the monster Bell-360 Invictus for the upgraded military program. Imagine the capability to take on enemy combatants over long distances without a need to refuel. A strong way to completely change the game. Since the Bell 525 was already a machine capable of excellent control and aerodynamic superiority to match with quick responsiveness to aid yaw, pitch, and roll, while using their effective rotor systems, Bell Helicopter figured that they had a head start on building themselves a replica for the military. Hence, there was no need to start over. The future looked all good and ready for a takeover in the helicopter space by the United States Army. However, as time went on, there was rarely news making rounds about this groundbreaking helicopter, and somehow it was beginning to trail off under the radar. As expected, a government program overseen by and for the military, who are trained in the arts of clandestine relationships with the media while learning to protect state secrets, made it difficult for a non-insider to tell what was going on. However, in a country with a media as effective as the United States, even the United States military has the chance for leaked information. And this time, it was revealed that there was a possibility of the Invictus not being released into the Army, and the project could be canceled once and for all. Although the claims were chalked off as rumors, they started to gain some traction as the years progressed. After a couple of years had passed, questions were being asked, and there were no answers. Fast forward 5 years after the mock-up had been released, on February 8, 2024, the United States Army finally proclaimed the end of the Future Attack Reconnaissance Aircraft FARA program, the same program that birthed the idea of creating the Invictus in the first place. This sudden information from the United States Army gave some legs to the rumor of a possibility that the aircraft 360 Invictus might remain in mock-up stage for life and never be produced in scale or added to the military fleet of helicopters. However, after the Army Chief of Staff, Randy George, relayed the decision, he explained that the Russo-Ukraine war has given him a new and even cheaper idea on how to engage in aerial combat without spending anywhere near $1 billion. The drones are relatively smaller, cheaper, and harder to detect, owing to the infusion of cutting-edge technologies and a possible development into using artificial intelligence. The Army Chief immediately recognized it as a safer option in war. Imagine a possibility where aerial vehicles can be sent behind enemy lines unmanned, reducing the possibility or near certainty of the loss of a life if it ever gets blown out of the sky. While his reasons remain exceptionally valid, it throws the future of the United States Army into the dark pit of doubt. Although the Future Attack Reconnaissance Aircraft FARA program has been declared closed, there are speculations that the already created projects and mock-ups, such as the Bell-360 Invictus, could possibly be retained and eventually added to the fleet in 2025. Whether or not the Invictus takes a place in the United States Army's fleet, only time will tell. Thanks for watching. While you are still here, click on the link on your screen to check out another of our videos. See you there.